Hey friends, Pastor Bill Walden here with Build Up the Church. God bless you. I hope you're doing great. This is a devotional word for March the 14th, 2024, and this is out of Mark chapter 15, verses 1 to 5. In this section, we see that Jesus has already been arrested. He's been arrested by the religious leaders who are against him. The Jews in the first century in Israel did not have the power to execute anyone who they believed was worthy of capital punishment. And so they brought him to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, and they stood before Pontius Pilate accusing Jesus of many things. And we read this: "Immediately in the morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council." So they got together and they decided what they were going to do. These are the Jewish religious leaders. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him to Pilate. They're trying to have Pilate do the dirty work that they were not allowed to do by the Roman occupation. Once again, they were not allowed to execute anybody, so they sought to trump up charges against Jesus that would threaten the peace of Rome in Israel, that would cause Pilate to have to make a political decision. All the Gospels tell us that Pilate didn't believe that Jesus was guilty of anything, but he was caught in a political crossfire. If he allows the Jewish public to create a riot because they're calling for the crucifixion of Jesus, then his own life is in danger. So he was backed into a corner, and wanting to gratify the crowds, he had Jesus executed eventually. But this is still speaking prior to that execution. They bound Jesus, led him away, delivered him to Pilate. Then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Obviously, this was the suggestion that the religious leaders had made. If they had said Jesus claims to be God, then Pilate wouldn't have cared a bit, because the Romans had a multiplicity of gods. So one additional god wouldn't mean anything to Pilate. But if they said he claims to be a king, now presumably Jesus is threatening the political power of Rome over Israel as presenting himself of the king of the Jews. And as a king, he might cause a rebellion. He might cause his followers to rise up against the Roman occupation. So the religious leaders were very strategic in their efforts to have Jesus executed by Rome. So they present him as the king of the Jews, and Pilate says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered and said to him, "It is as you say." Jesus didn't give him a speech or anything like that. He just said, "Yes, that's true. I'm the king of the Jews." And the chief priests accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. One has to wonder if after Jesus' statement that the religious leaders, the Jews, would have expected Pilate to rise up immediately and say, "Okay, well, off to execution right away." You can imagine that there was a pause. Jesus says, "Yes, I'm the king of the Jews." And then Pilate just sits there and does nothing. Perhaps, we don't know, but it's certainly possible. So the chief priests start to ramp up once again their accusations against Jesus. They accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. Jesus would not defend himself. Then Pilate asked him again, saying, "Do you answer nothing? See how many things they testify against you." It's as if they were throwing accusations against Jesus towards Pilate to see what would work. Well, if Pilate doesn't respond to this, let's see if he responds to that. And they just kept throwing accusations in Pilate's direction, hoping to prompt him to respond to save his own political life. Verse 5 is what I want to focus on. But Jesus still answered nothing, so that Pilate marveled. Pilate had judged many men and condemned many men to death, and undoubtedly each one of them would have been pleading for their life. They would have been groveling. They would have been angry. They would have been screaming. They would have been blaming their own accusers. They would have been playing the victim. They would have done any number of things which, humanly speaking, we understand. Jesus answered nothing and was so calm and so peaceful that Pilate was amazed. Dear friends, Jesus was no victim. He came to give himself as a sacrifice for our sins. He came to seek and to save those who were lost. He very calmly and very deliberately went to the cross for the salvation of all of mankind, for the forgiveness of sins. There is no other way to be right with God. It can't be done through our own efforts. It can't be done through having more good deeds than bad deeds. It can't be done through joining a church or memorizing Bible verses or some other verses from a holy book or going through ceremonies or anything else, because all of that is man-centered and man-created. If you have any respect or anything for Jesus, then I encourage you and invite you and ask you and plead with you, accept Jesus on his own terms. Don't say that you're for Jesus, but create somebody that barely looks like him. Accept Jesus as he is, because he wants to receive you as you are, and he wants to forgive you. So thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Bye-bye.